Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're having a good weekend. I wanted to share with you a Deepest Fear inventory so you have an example and talk a little bit about why they're a great practice. I talked about them a little bit in my last post about this concept of fearing our power. When we want things for ourselves that feel big and out of reach, lots of fear comes up because it means change, right? Going from here to having something big that we desire usually means leaving something behind, and usually brings up a lot of fears around growing in some way, expanding our experience, taking new kinds of risks, taking new chances, putting ourselves in a position of potentially failing. Whatever, I use that term in a reductive way when I like to espouse the idea that failure is really a learning opportunity for us to keep going and build resilience. So I write about this a little bit in the rest of the post, and there's a link to Carolyn Elliott, who is the person who devised the practice of Deepest Fear Inventory. There's a link to her description of how to do this. Basically, you need a single sheet of paper, something that's not attached to your journal or something you're willing to tear out of your journal, because you're going to tear up the entire page. There's an intro part that's almost always the same, except you change out the thing it is that you're desiring to have, or you don't. You do the same Deepest Fear inventory multiple times to keep working with it. But that intro part, we can change out the thing that we're desiring. And then what follows are 20 fears we have around experiencing the fulfillment of that desire. Then there's like a little closing part where you ask for the fears to be removed. You ask for knowledge of the spirit, the mystery, the great mysteries will for us, and our own strength to carry it out. We say something like amen or so be it to kind of like seal it up. And the next part of the process is reading the Deepest Fear inventory aloud to someone else, which is an additionally uncomfortable part of the process. As I mentioned in the post, my sister is usually the person, she's my Deepest Fear inventory partner, and she has shared Deepest Fear inventories with me. Sometimes we would trade them on a phone call. And your partner's only response needs to be, thank you for sharing, or thank you for your honesty. And as a listener, our only response needs to be, as a reader of a Deepest Fear inventory, our only statement needs to be, thank you for listening to whomever it is that has received our fears. After you read it out loud, then you tear the paper up into little bitty pieces and you throw it in the trash or burn it in a fire, but move it out of your space. There's no reason to hang on to this. There's no reason to like keep it in your journal so you know what your fears were. The goal is to eliminate the fears, and tearing up the paper is a physical demonstration that we are ready for the fears to be released. Because I think it can be difficult. I introduce this practice to clients. They do them in our coaching sessions. Sometimes, like between coaching sessions, they'll write out a Deepest Fear inventory. During our sessions, I invite them to read it to me. Unless they have someone in their life they feel really great about sharing it with right now. But if it's hard for you to think of like getting on the phone with someone you love, even though you know they love you unconditionally, it might feel uncomfortable to like, for the very first time, tell this person, okay, I wrote a Deepest Fear inventory. Here's what it is. All I need you to do is listen. All I need you to do is say thank you for sharing when I'm done. It's not a huge ask. It only takes a few minutes, but it can feel incredibly vulnerable. And so that's why I've offered to host a little gathering next Saturday. I'll just open up a Zoom room, and anyone who wants to come can bring their own Deepest Fear inventory, which means everyone who's there has a Deepest Fear inventory to share. We'll take turns reading them. We'll take turns saying, thank you for sharing. And we'll watch each other tear up the Deepest Fear inventories. So everyone is at the same level of vulnerability. I've seen this done in groups. We've done this at retreats. It's a really powerful practice. Yes, it feels vulnerable when you're the one reading the Deepest Fear inventory. But as you hear other people share theirs, you also realize that we all have a lot of the same fears. They may not be like exactly identical, but if you boil them down to their essence, they're very much the same. We have a lot of fears about our own inadequacy. We have our fears around receiving good things in our lives. We have all kinds of fears that we all can relate to. So this gathering is a place where you get to kind of practice the vulnerability, you get to release these deepest fears, and you get some reassurance that you and all the fears you contain inside of you are not alone, are not terribly unique. It's very universal to be afraid of things. So with all that said, I'm about to read you my Deepest Fear inventory. A couple things I want to note. At the beginning, you start by saying, I absolutely hate and resent. And what you put after that is something that you want very much. So it seems counterintuitive to say, I hate and resent having $1 million. And you write it as if you got it, it's already here, even if you don't. So it seems counterintuitive to be like, I hate and resent having $1 million, but it logically kind of articulates the thing. Like there's something about whatever it is we want that we do hate and resent wanting or having, because our fears compel us to hate and resent it. So by constructing the sentence in this kind of counter-logical way, we're acknowledging something important. And then 20 fears, 20 reasons, 20 fears why you hate and resent this thing that you desire. I encourage you, with every fear that you list, even if you don't write it on every single line, make sure that when you read it, you do say this, because I have a deep fear of, or because I have a deep fear that. One other thing to note is that when you express a fear about, maybe you say, because I have a deep fear that my family will disapprove of my choices, we need to add on this phrase, and I am unwilling to experience their judgment. So if we have a fear of something happening or some kind of reaction, and part of the fear is really our own reluctance to experience that reaction, that emotion, that kind of fact that we're predicting, we also need to say, and I am unwilling to feel that. You'll see this a couple times in my Deepest Fear inventory, so you can see what I'm talking about. And then at the end, yeah, you'll see. Those are the things I want to tell you. And now I share this one with you. I chose to do this around running my own business and having a successful business. As many of you know, I recently switched from working full-time for other entities for decades. And for the first time as a grown-up, I am running my own business. I would love for my business to flourish and be successful and support me so that I don't have to go back to working for other people. But yeah, I'm afraid, what if it doesn't? What if I fail? What if it's wildly successful? You'll see some of this in the Deepest Fear inventory. So that's why I'm writing about this. That's kind of one of the big movements happening in my life. All right, here we go. Dear universe, I absolutely hate and resent running a thriving, abundant, witchy business that positively impacts hundreds of people because I have a deep fear that I can't make it happen. Because I have a deep fear that working for someone else is the only way I'll ever experience financial security. Because I have a deep fear that not enough people will find my business useful to them. Because I have a deep fear that running my own business requires more responsibility than I can handle. Because I have a deep fear that I will wildly enjoy my life and because I have a deep fear that I will wildly enjoy my life and I am unwilling to experience that level of joy. So that's where you get, because I'm unwilling. Because I have a deep fear that it will be too much work and I'm unwilling to do that work. Because I have a deep fear that I am too lazy. Because I have a deep fear that I will never have health insurance again, and this will eventually ruin my life and bankrupt me. Because I have a deep fear that what I'm doing doesn't matter. Because I have a deep fear that if it doesn't work, I won't be able to find a decent job again. Because I have a deep fear of being madly successful, and I am unwilling to experience magnificent levels of success. Because I have a deep fear of making more money than I ever have before. Because I have a deep fear that I will use my money irresponsibly, especially if I have more of it. Because I have a deep fear that what I offer is too niche or specific to ever attract the number of people I need to support my business. Because I have a deep fear, having a hard time reading my own. Okay, here it is. Because I have a deep fear that the ideas I have to grow the business and serve more people, because I have a deep fear that the ideas that I'm coming up with to grow the business and serve more people are only interesting to me. Because I have a deep fear that I don't have the moxie, drive, creativity, or dedication to make it happen. Because I have a deep fear that more success will alienate me from people I care about, and I am unwilling to experience those feelings of abandonment or estrangement. Because I have a deep fear that I will become more visible, and I am unwilling to experience the discomfort of being seen. Because I have a deep fear that I'll work really hard for a long time and still continue to struggle energetically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. Because I have a deep fear that it's selfish or self-aggrandizing to want to do this in the first place. Dear universe, I ask that you remove these fears. I pray only for knowledge of your will for me and the strength to carry it out. So be it. This is when you say, thank you for your honesty. And this is when I say, thank you for listening. And then I rip up all these fears into little bitty pieces, which I will then throw in the trash. As you can see, the fears run the gamut from like being a loser, being lazy, being successful. You can also let yourself have a little bit of a sense of humor with this. One thing that happens is that you externalize all of these fears onto paper, into language. And so you're no longer housing the fears as this kind of like, I see them in my mind like disgusting, like rats all like curled up together in this big ball of just like rats and filth, like circling around inside me in my psyche. Those are all the fears, no offense to rats. And that by putting them down into words, we start to like pull each rat out of the nest and put it in front of us to say like, why are you running my life? Here they go in the trash. And you can see how some of them are really deeply serious and deeply held fears that trace back to childhood. A lot of them have to do with how we're socialized. But we also just see like, wow, that's a lot of stuff that's holding me back. No wonder I'm afraid. I should also say that it's totally normal for someone when they're reading a Deepest Fear inventory to feel emotional, to cry a little bit, especially when you hit some of those fears that are like really, really deeply entrenched. Those can be tender moments, and that could happen in the gathering where we're going to share our Deepest Fear inventories, and that's totally okay. I want that to be a space where we can safely feel those feelings, release them, and release the fears in the process too. And also hold one another up as we share these fears. I did not cry in this one because I've done some Deepest Fear inventories around this very same issue in the past, and I have a little more practice doing them. So the more you do them, the easier they become. You can also, if you're working through something that feels really big right now, like trying to leave a job, changing something big in your relationship, starting to date again after a hiatus, having a conversation with someone in your family about something that feels really scary and raw, whatever the case may be, if there's just like some really big fear around it, I also recommend doing multiple Deepest Fear inventories. So there were periods where I would do Deepest Fear inventories around the same kind of wish or desire, several days in a row, or over the period of a month, I would do a couple of them a week. And every time I'd write a new one, I might articulate that thing I'm desiring in a slightly different way. So like in this one, I absolutely hate and resent having a thriving business. The next time I do it around the same issue, I might change it or rephrase it and say, because I absolutely hate and resent making more money than I've ever made in my entire life. So I can come at the same sort of situation from different angles and articulate different aspects of it and continue to do the Deepest Fear inventories. I have found that they work on the energetic level, they work on the spiritual level. I believe they let the unseen forces know that we're committed to experiencing this thing we're desiring. We're committed to doing the work required internally and externally to make it happen. And when we make that known, when we show that commitment, then those unseen forces send some good energy our way, send us some opportunities, and the process slowly gets easier. So that's my public service announcement about Deepest Fear inventories. I encourage you in the next week to write one yourself and come to the gathering next Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. And we'll stay until, I have no idea who's going to come. Maybe no one will come. If you feel like this rising energy in you that feels like, I think that's something I should do, and also feel this tremendous dread around the possibility of reading such a thing in front of other people, I encourage you to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, do the practice, come to the gathering. It might last 10 minutes if there's 3 people. It might last 20 if there's a few more. So I don't expect there to be a giant room full, but I would love for you to shock me. And we'll stay until everyone's had a chance. And of course, I will hang out afterwards to talk with anyone who wants to process what it felt like to go through that experience. So I leave you with that, and I hope to see you next Saturday. I also mentioned in the post that on Thursday night, we're going to have something called reading night, just for members, only members. It's 1 hour. The first half will be a time for anyone who wants to share a little bit of their creative work. So it doesn't have to be writing. You could show us like a visual piece that you're creating, a song you've written, whatever the case may be. But if it is a piece of writing, you can read as little as 1 sentence, you can read as much as 2 pages or 2 poems. And that's what we'll do in the first half hour. And then the second half hour, we're going to practice reading tarot cards for other people. So I'll create a simple 3-card spread that we can all use, and we'll go into breakout rooms and practice trading readings, come back together and process. And that's it. A little creative work, a little tarot work, and some community time. All right. All the Zoom links for all these things are in the post. And I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Take care.